Hey guys, I'm Joe. This is Theo Joe Tech. If you're from the US, then you know that credit cards in the past couple of years here have started to get little chips on the side. These are called EMV chips, and by now I think most credit cards now have them, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about them so you can understand what the purpose is, the advantages over magnetic strips, and that sort of thing. So the thing you need to know about magnetic strips is they're very easy to copy because the data on them doesn't change at all. So that's why you have credit card skimmers where people try to read it, do man-in-the-middle attacks, and once they have it, they can use it as often as they like. So it's really not secure at all, but it is easy. Now, EMV technology is something that is really not new. It's been around since the 80s in Europe, but the US hasn't adopted it until now. And it's chip and pin, also known as, but EMV stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. EuroPay I don't think is even around anymore, but those were the three companies that started this protocol. Now, unlike magnetic strip, which is just a static storage of information, a EMV chip is actually an integrated circuit, a mini computer that handles the transaction, and it's kind of like a handshake as opposed to the merchant just reading the data off it. So with an EMV chip, it basically creates a unique transaction key for every single transaction. So even if someone were to copy that transaction key or signal, they wouldn't be able to reuse it. So it's a lot harder to clone the credit card using the EMV chip. So theoretically, it should be not susceptible to man-in-the-middle attacks where you have a skimmer, but that's not always the case because from what I understand, the chips can also use a protocol which sends the information unencrypted. So if it does that, then obviously it can copy the magnetic stripe data, which is also stored on the chip for backwards compatibility. I actually watched a presentation about EMV chips from a few years ago, and what the speaker said was that skimmers can actually put some sort of device in between the ATM or the merchant terminal and the card, so when you put it in, it kind of like intercepts it and then tells the chip that it can't accept anything except unencrypted data, and the chip just accepts it, says okay, and sends it unencrypted, and of course the man in the middle can retrieve that. And I assume that newer cards aren't going to do that, but you never know, especially in the US where they're just starting to adopt this. You would think that they would have their best foot forward and have the most security starting out because they don't even have to worry about retroactively fixing old systems. So hopefully they'll have a more secure system than the ones that would have to be updated in Europe, for example. But assuming a secure transaction is made, what happens is that theoretically the chip is going to have some sort of key on it that can't be extracted. So what happens is that the merchant terminal sends a bit of data to the chip, and then the chip applies the key to that data, sends it back, and because only that chip has that key on it and it can't be extracted, then that basically provides proof that the physical card was used in the transaction. So it just adds security to the transaction because you can know that an actual person with the real card made the purchase. And from what I understand, the cryptography is actually pretty rudimentary because the protocol originated back in the 80s and they haven't really changed it since then. But of course it works better than a magnetic strip, which you can just copy and skim all the time. Now for every transaction with EMV, it's going to require a card holder verification. That could be in the form of a PIN that you know, so that's where it comes from, chip and PIN, or it could just be a regular signature. Another advantage of the EMV chips is that you can actually store additional information on it. For example, these are called applications, and one application could be a second credit card. So you can have multiple cards stored on it and use one card and choose it at the terminal. I don't think that the US cards that they're using right now do that, but it's still possible. I'm not really sure how that works over in Europe. I'm sure it's being used some places, but I haven't really heard of it being used in any card that I've ever gotten. Also, the thing about chip and PIN cards is that they pretty much all have magnetic stripes as well. They have both. So that's because America, up until now, has only supported magnetic strips. So if you have a card issued in Europe, you would really want it to have a magnetic strip in case you ever go to America. And also, the terminals have to be able to support magnetic strip for Americans who go to Europe. So it's backwards compatible. So if someone steals your card, even if they can't really copy the chip, then they can still copy the magnetic stripe data and use that online or wherever. But of course, what you would want to do is just make sure you use the chip whenever you can as opposed to the magnetic strip, so then you get afforded that extra protection. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the US adopts this and how widespread it becomes. I think by the fact that the credit card issuers are really all issuing with chip and PIN, we'll probably see it start to get used. I definitely think the uptake is going to be limited by retailers, because why would they want to change out and buy a whole new system if they don't have to, especially considering people are really lazy. They might not want to learn how to do a new swipe, even though it's the same exact thing. But if you consider the protection you get, it might convince a lot of people, because the US accounts for about 25% of credit card transactions, but 50% of the credit card fraud. So that kind of tells you something about our technology. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I know my chip and PIN cards, I really haven't been able to use them at any retailers because, you know, they don't tell you that they support it if they do at all. So we'll have to see. I want to know what you guys think. If you're from Europe, then what do you think about the magnetic strips? Do you ever use those, just like we never use the chip and PIN here? And if you're in America, have you seen that many retailers starting to use this chip and PIN? And what do you think about the whole switch over? We can talk about that. I'm actually interested to hear the different viewpoints from different regions. If you liked this video, you can give it a thumbs up so YouTube will know you liked it and show more videos of mine like this. And if you want to subscribe, I try to make new videos 3 times a week, so I think it should be worth it. You can also check out some other videos on the right-hand side. Either click them or look in the description for the same link, like if you're on a phone. And I will look forward to hearing from you guys. So thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.